OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, Anthropic, you name it. They're very, very incentivized to keep the public thinking that this like AGI, this superintelligence, this next big thing is just right around the corner. The big competitor now is probably going to be Meta with all the money and talent and everything that they're pumping into it. US and China are kind of in a cold war right now, right? We're in this cold war to be the first to achieve this AGI. Any of us who are like really, really paying close attention to AI are both like excited, but also a little bit scared. I wouldn't be shocked to learn right now that if a lot of our government was like run by ChatGPT. Hey, I'm Matt Wolfe. I've got a YouTube channel focused on all of the latest AI news and cool tools. And I've also got a website and newsletter called Future Tools, where I also share the latest AI news and tools.
And so excited to chat with you. We have learned so much from those, from everything you've like shared over the years. I mean, I was watching your stuff before I started my channel, and it was part of the inspiration. So thanks for just plugging through for all these years now, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun space to be in. I get to meet a lot of cool people. You know, Dylan and I, we've gotten to hang out, I think, a couple times now.
Yeah.
It's just been an awesome space. So much fun stuff to play with and to test and to mess around with constantly, and lots of good people doing really, really smart work as well. So it's been a really fun ride.
Yeah, I know sometimes you would say when you were at the conferences, like the Google conference, you'd get a chance to talk to some of the engineers actually building the stuff, but they're not on the highest level where they have to like do the marketing spiel, but they can actually get into the guts of what works and what doesn't work. Like from some of those insights, what are you gleaning? Like, what does it feel like the industry is like under the surface?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I feel like in the sort of like general public, right? You've got the big tech companies, and I think the general public sees the big tech companies as like these evil big corporations that only care about, shareholder profits and making as much money as possible, and they'll steal your data and they'll train models on it, and they don't really care about the user. And I think maybe like in the grand scheme of things, like as a corporate structure, I think a lot of these businesses are very, very focused on like shareholder profits and, doing what they can for shareholders. But I think like on an individual basis, going and actually talking to the people that work in the company, I never get the impression that like anybody at any of these companies, like their goal is to manipulate people or steal their data or take jobs away from people or any of that kind of thing. I always end up talking to people that are just like really, really passionate and excited about like the sort of new advancements that they're making, the new capabilities that they're giving humans that humans didn't have before. And I think like going to a lot of these events and talking to a lot of the people, like the sort of humanity underneath the big tech companies is what really like comes through for me. Is, you talk, like I remember I went to Google I/O a couple years ago, and I was in like the press area talking to somebody that worked at Google, and she was really nervous and excited because they were about to do a keynote. She wasn't even going on stage, but somebody else was about to go give a keynote and talk about technology that she had been working on for the last 2 years. And she was like really nervous and excited about how like the audience was going to take it. She's like, hopefully people don't like hate this new technology. Hopefully people think this is really, really cool. And like talking to the person behind it, like she had no aspirations of like, haha, this is going to like replace jobs. She was just like, this is really cool tech that I've been working on for the last 2 years. That's really, really exciting. And I can't wait for people to like see what we've been doing. And I just really think that humanity thing is the big thing that comes through.
What about the sense of like race condition? Does it feel like they're working on something at a fairly reasonable pace, like a pace that's safe? Or do you kind of get the sense that the average person is like, okay, like there's other companies that are like going at breakneck speeds, other countries that are going at breakneck speeds, and I just have to, even if it's not totally perfected, get it out there? Or do you feel like they have the safety in place to make the right decisions?
I definitely feel like it varies from company to company. I definitely think talking to people at Google, like they tend to lean more on like the cautious side of like, let's make sure that we feel this is really ready before we put it out. I feel like, I love working with Microsoft. I've worked with Microsoft quite a bit, been to a lot of their events. Every once in a while, I get the impression that like Microsoft is like, let's push stuff out. Let's be faster than everybody else. Let's be on top of things. And I feel like maybe at times Microsoft might be kind of in that sort of competition race mode. Let's get it out ahead of everybody else. So it really kind of varies from company to company. And I almost put like OpenAI sort of in between the two of them, right? Like they're maybe not quite as aggressive at trying to get stuff out as Microsoft, but they're probably also not quite as conservative as Google. So there's like this spectrum. And I feel like every different tech company kind of is a different sort of place on that spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, it definitely seems like Sam Altman is a product guy. And then it seems like there's been a turn in Zuckerberg too. I mean, I guess Wes was covering some of this, but all the purchases he's made with the Superintelligence team, and it certainly seems like there's some kind of panic there. And Elon's been catching up, and I know he's going as fast as possible.
Yeah,
It was very interesting to see, first of all, Mark Zuckerberg in his new announcement of the personal superintelligence, how much money he's been spending on that. Dario Amodei is a little bit heated about that on his latest podcast, saying like, hey, he can't just throw capital at it and just replace having like the mission and stuff like that. So what do you think about that whole thing? Like Elon's throwing tons of money at compute. Mark Zuckerberg's throwing tons of money at talent. Is that the thing that's going to win this race, or you think that it's something else that there might be missing?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say for sure. I think the big bottleneck, honestly, is more energy than anything else, right? Like when you look at like the USA and you look at China, the USA is definitely more dominant when it comes to like the chip production and having that sort of technology that's really, really good for training these models. But then you look at China, they've got energy infrastructure, but have a harder time getting access to these chips. And I think in the US, I think energy is going to actually be the biggest bottleneck that these companies run into. But I do think there is an element to like, you can throw more and more and more money at this and actually catch up. If you look at like Google, right? 2 years ago, all of us that were sort of paying attention to AI 2 years ago, we were all looking at Google going, man, how did they fall so far behind? How is Google like not right up there with OpenAI and Microsoft? And here we are 2 years later going, Google's up there. If not the best right now, they're definitely top 2 or top 3, right? So I definitely think throwing a lot of money and a lot of talent at it will probably fix a lot of things. When it comes to Meta is definitely an interesting case because Meta is like one of the few companies that I really, really wonder about their motives. But I don't know if we want to go there or not. But like Meta, like I do feel like OpenAI and Google are sort of more like altruistic. They do see this sort of like utopia future that they're going for. Meta, on the other hand, I definitely feel like they might have slightly different motives than like a giant utopia for humankind.
Yeah, certainly Demis seems to be, to me at least, like one of the most trustworthy seeming people in the space, like one of the leaders in the space. So I have a lot of faith in him. So I'm glad that he's at the top or near the top of that race. Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, you know what's wild is when I read that book about the whole history of OpenAI, so many people didn't like Demis at the time. I mean, part of OpenAI being created was literally, there's all these quotes in the book from Elon Musk talking to Sam Altman being like, we cannot let Demis run the world. Like he's not the right guy for this. And then, everything moves forward. And I'm like, wow, you've spent a lot of time building like AlphaFold and all these tools that weren't about manipulation early on. And I kind of trust you. So it's wild how it all plays out.
Yeah, and I actually think, the pace at which Google is moving is in spite of Demis, not because of Demis. Like, I think if it was Demis's way, like if he had his way, he would probably move a lot slower and really more methodically about what gets released. But I think, the larger Google company, there's other people that want to push this technology faster. And I think if it was up to Demis, he would probably slow down. I mean, I've had conversations with Demis before. And like he is very methodical. He is very very understanding of like the fears of like humans around where AI is all going. Like he gets it, and I feel like he wants to do things the right way.
I can't imagine that there was any pressure that could have been heavier than like 2 years ago when ChatGPT is just really eating up search queries. And you look at a company like Google that makes all of its money, like 50 billion a year, 60 billion a year from search queries. And you're like, this is the disruptive technology that can eat our entire budget. So,
100%,
like at that point, I think Demis is forced to do all sorts of compromising.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I got to say, so seeing you and Matt Berman going to the Google I/O, interviewing these top AI labs, the CEOs of these top AI labs, that was incredible to see. So huge congratulations on that. It was amazing. It's so interesting to get kind of an insider's perspective. You talk to Demis, so you can kind of gauge maybe a little bit where he's coming from. That's absolutely incredible. Um, and kind of in light of that, I just wanted to ask you. So, I mean, there's a lot more and more of these AI lab leaders saying that we're beginning to see signs of self-improvement, recursive self-improvement. We saw a number of papers being published, and some of them seem almost like we're not seeing what's happening now. We're seeing what kind of happened a year ago, a year plus.
Yeah.
Are you worried about that? Do you believe that we're about to see this intelligence explosion? Leopold Aschenbrenner in his paper where it just like takes off. Like, what's your take on that? Are you worried, excited, or you don't think it's happening anytime soon? Where are you on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is all just sort of theoretical, sort of speculation and stuff, right? But I do think that the pace is probably not going to be as fast as what most people think it is. I think a lot of these big AI labs, I think OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, Anthropic, you name it, they're very, very incentivized to keep the public thinking that this like AGI, this superintelligence, this next big thing is just right around the corner, so that that you're constantly paying attention to what they're doing.
Yep.
But I do actually think it's probably a little bit further out than what people think. I think once we hit that sort of like moment of AGI, I think everything just goes explosive, right? Like I feel like ASI is fairly close behind AGI. Once you get to a point where these models are able to like really, really solve their own problems and really like an AGI would be basically in every dome. Like, I don't know if this is how you define it, but I would define it as like, it's basically as smart as the smartest human in every single domain.
Yeah.
Right. ASI is now, okay, it's smarter than the average human in most of these domains. And I think once you hit AGI, ASI follows really quickly. So that exponential curve just turns into a hockey stick. But, I do think it's probably a little bit further out, like the whole AGI talk, than what maybe like Sam Altman might let people on to think. But I do think once AGI hits, things just go explosive.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, my kind of not concern, but something that I think might happen is because I mean, Ethan Mollick was talking about this idea of the jagged frontier, where it might be superhuman in this one area, and then it can't, count the number of R's in strawberry or something silly like that. So we tend to, I think some people would tend to dismiss it, saying, "Oh, well, it's obviously can't be that smart if it can't count letters in a sentence or in this word." But what if it's like solving math problems and various other energy problems so far advanced of what the human mind is capable of, and it's still kind of silly, makes silly mistakes? I mean, does that so my fear is it gets super good at AI research. It automates AI research and does that better than humans can, and becomes a little bit opaque to us. You know what I mean? We can't quite understand it. I think that's the fear for a lot of people. And certainly from that sense, I do hope that it does take longer so we have more time to prepare for this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, there's research models out there doing that. I mean, I covered one in my video just last week that had come up with 160 different types of architecture for an AI system. And this was an AI large language model itself.
Yep.
And then tested them, and it had its own little data set. And obviously it's not a risk on its own, but that's the kind of thing that could evolve into a much more like looped together exponential growth thing.
I mean, even Google DeepMind has their Alpha Evolve, which is essentially like an AI designed to create new algorithms, right? So it's definitely something they're working on. And coming back to the original question of like, am I excited? Am I scared? Am I like, yes to all of it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like
above, yeah.
I feel like any of us who are like really, really paying close attention to AI are both like excited, but also a little bit scared. Like
exactly.
I've I don't think I've talked to anybody who's really, really deep in AI, paying really close attention, that doesn't have a little bit of fear of where this all might be headed.
100%. Yeah, I've said it before. Like for people, if you're not a little bit scared, you might not be getting what's happening. You have to
Right.
just a little bit of respect, a little bit of fear for what's coming, I guess. So absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I mean, I do have those worries too that, you know, AI might invent its own coding language that humans don't understand, and now all of a sudden it's creating code and creating products that no human can debug because they don't know the language, right? Like, I do think eventually it's going to get to that point where it's going to figure out how to be more and more and more efficient, and that efficiency is no longer understandable by humans.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, you know, even before AI was on the scene, there's probably no one on Earth anymore that really understands how the Google search algorithm works. I mean, so many people have worked on it for so many years and so many aspects of it. It's not like it can just be debugged by one person anymore. So
Yeah,
it's like,
true.
yeah. Anyways, I have some information in front of me from 1 year ago. You were on a podcast with me, and I asked you to give a percentage to a lot of interesting questions, and I thought it might be fun to kind of revisit some of them. So the first one I wanted to bring up was, I asked you 1 year ago, what do you think the odds are that AI video reaches Hollywood level quality by 2030? And you gave that an 80% chance. But that was before VO3 existed. That's before Kling existed.
By 2030, yeah, I'd say I'm probably at 100% now.
Yeah.
I mean, I was already pretty high up at 80% when we talked a year ago. But yeah, like you've mentioned, we've got VO3, we've got that new Aleph, I don't know how it's pronounced, the new runway thing.
Very recent,
like,
yep.
All sorts of new stuff is coming out. I don't know if you guys saw the showrunner thing that Netflix just invested in, which is basically like a Netflix, but all of the shows are AI generated. And the sort of next phase of that showrunner is you're going to be able to say, hey, I want, like, they're trying to get licensing from companies like Disney and stuff. So they want you to be able to go in there and be like, hey, I want you to make me Toy Story 6. And it just like spits out the whole new movie in AI, and then others can watch what you generated. So I mean, like, big money is going towards that space. I think Hollywood is reluctantly embracing AI more and more and more. I think, you know, you're hearing more stories all the time of like movies and TV shows and stuff that leveraged AI to like fix little things. And I think as Hollywood starts to figure out like, oh, we can cut even more and more and more costs on things like VFX and stuff like that, you're just going to see AI get used more and more and more. And next thing you know, it'll just be sort of normal to have AI making 90% of the movie.
To me, it feels like 2028, 2027, maybe, for just that one click, the entire movie is just generated for you and you can't really tell.
Yeah.
It seems like it's like right around the corner.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said there is a 50% chance that a single company would have $1 trillion infrastructure for running inference. What do you think? Is there any company out there, probably by 2030, that will have $1 trillion invested in compute?
I mean, what did I say last time? 50-50?
50. Yeah, you said 50-50.
Yeah, I'd say it's much higher now, especially since we heard about Stargate, right? Stargate, they're already investing, what, 500 billion, although those numbers seem to fluctuate depending on the source you read. You've got Meta, who's putting $100 billion into their infrastructure. So, you know, what was the timeline on it again?
2030.
By 2030, yeah, I would say 100% chance.
Oh my gosh, you went from 50 to 100 on it?
Yeah, I mean, look at Project Stargate, right? Like, and if we're looking at even like China or something, like you didn't specify like in the US, I bet other countries are going to invest that kind of money into infrastructure as well.
And there's been a lot of legal changes too, so we have more money going into it in the U.S. from the government's point of view and from defense budgets and okay, so so
maybe
we've
90%, right? Maybe it's not a certainty, but I would say it's a pretty high probability.
It's got to be up there.
So far we are accelerating. You've increased the Hollywood video, increased the $1 trillion infrastructure.
100%. Yeah.
So this will be a good question for you too, Wes. But I asked what the odds were that OpenAI is the first to achieve AGI and ASI, and you would rank the companies in what you thought would the order that seemed like they were leading in, and you put the odds of OpenAI at 50%. Do you feel like Google has now challenged that, or Elon has challenged that? I'd love to hear from actually both of you on that one. What do you think? Who's going to be the first to AGI, and what percentage?
I don't know. I think I'm still in the mind that OpenAI is going to do it first, and the reason is I think OpenAI is always like one model ahead of what we're seeing, possibly even two models ahead of what we're seeing, right? So like they're sort of marketing GPT-5 already, but internally they've probably already got like a GPT-6 that's, you know, even better or something, right? So I think they have internal models that are better than a lot of people realize, where I think Google tends to put out what they have available. I don't really know if Google's too far ahead. I think the big competitor now is probably going to be Meta, with all the money and talent and everything that they're pumping into it. I almost feel like it might become a race between OpenAI and Meta. I mean, Google's in the mix, but I do think that like OpenAI is still ahead, at least internally, and I think Meta is gonna make a sprint here.
Wes, what about you? Who do you think's the first company to get there, and what odds would you put on them?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's a great question. I saw a hot take on Twitter the other day, which is I think kind of interesting. That he said the real AGI, I forget who it was. I wish I could give credit. We'll find it later if I can find it. I did in my previous video, but he said something along the lines of the real AGI is the training process or the training model inside of, let's say, OpenAI that is able to produce these models that are capable of getting the gold medal on the IMO, models that are capable of how they combined their operator with deep research. And now we have agent, which is pretty good for what it is. I mean, certainly not perfect. I wouldn't be using it for most of my day-to-day stuff, but man, like just seeing the progress from 6 to 8 months ago. So it's a different way of thinking about it, because we tend to look at a model and say, is this AGI, like that meme, right? Is this AGI? But what if the quote unquote true AGI is that system capable of spitting out these bespoke models for each particular purpose? Like Alpha with Google DeepMind, they have, you know, their AlphaFold, Alpha this, they're not LLMs, but they're specific models kind of around the same architecture. And with that, if we can define it like that, I mean, I feel like OpenAI will win that race, because they've been just compounding so much longer. Not that much longer, but they started compounding earlier. And it does seem like they have some secret sauce that they figured out, and they're just like spitting these models out. So does that make sense?
Yeah. So what's your odds on them?
Odds on creating, I mean, we don't have
on them being the first company to AGI, like 50% chance they're the first to get AGI, 10% Meta's.
I would say if they don't hit some weird, well, this whole thing with Mark Zuckerberg stealing so much talent was kind of a wild card. If they don't hit some weird, unexpected thing like that and just keep going at the rate they've been going, I would give them a 70% chance to being the first there.
Oh.
I think that's, yeah.
So I'm a little bit interested in a couple of the companies that are doing more just like straight scaling. Like I think Safe Superintelligence, which is just going like, I don't need to bog my engineers down with products. I don't need to like do anything safe. I don't need to have a marketing team. I can just build and scale, build and scale. I think that's an iterative process that might win. I'm not going to put that as something I would bet on, but I would say like there's 15% chance that either he gets there first with Safe Superintelligence, or maybe because Elon seems to be scaling a little faster than everyone else, willing to just like build those power plants on, you know, non-renewable like sources of energy, and just like cutting deals in the Middle East where they have energy, and just getting it done at sort of any cost, whereas there's no corporate bureaucracy sort of slowing him down in the same way, because it's all personal wealth. I think there's a couple of chances that those guys win. But in the normal corporate world, I still think Google is maybe a little bit better than OpenAI in the long run. I just feel like they have all these pieces that hadn't been put together properly, including their like CUDA infrastructure that does the servers. And that seems like it's a competitor to NVIDIA. And NVIDIA is it's kind of like everyone who uses NVIDIA versus Google in some kind of internal scaling ways. And it seems like I would put them as the highest percent, but only at maybe 30. I think there's like a 30% chance they win, and then the rest is sort of spread out. But I feel like it's Google's race to lose, and then OpenAI like right after that.
And here's a question for you guys. What happens if China gets open access to NVIDIA technology? Like there's no export ban.
I think they just did, right? Didn't the ban just end?
No, I think they put more
I
for
think
the
it's
chips.
still, I think they're still restricted to some degree, right? Like I don't think they can get H100s, but they can get like H20s or something like that.
Okay.
So like they're not quite as powerful as the GPUs the US gets, but they're still pretty good. And yeah, I mean it's
Yeah,
definitely a little
maybe. I
convoluted.
mean, maybe if China can unify in a way our companies can't, because we're competing with each other and they can be more unified across data centers, maybe.
Yeah. 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 Just curious how much of
Good point.
that gives us an advantage, gives US an advantage. The fact that
Actually, one of the most interesting things they did when the ban first started is there was a lot of innovation in China for ways to sync across data centers for training runs, to sync across older GPUs and even CPUs in some cases. So they might have sort of an advantage in piecing together random parts of older technology than us. And if that's what's needed, then maybe that is the win.
and a lot
Yeah,
of the
I mean,
algorithmic stuff too. You know what I mean? GRPO and DeepSeek, all that stuff that was huge on that side as well.
yeah. I mean, we saw that with DeepSeek, right? Where they supposedly figured out how to do it with lesser GPUs. There's also the rumors that they did it with H100s and they just didn't want to admit it because of, legal repercussions. But yeah, I think they've had to figure out how to get scrappy and resourceful and figure out how to, how to compete with lesser technology, which could be to their advantage.
All right. So how about PDoom? You put yourself between 5 to 10% 1 year ago. Has that changed?
I don't think it's changed really. It might actually be slightly higher. I might lean more towards like the 10% than the 5%. I think over time it's gotten a bit higher. Just sort of seeing the pace of things. And going back to that conversation we had earlier about like once these models get to a point where humans don't even understand what the model is doing, right? Right now we can sort of see the chain of thought, although the model companies are starting to hide the chain of thought again more and more. I think it's going to get to a point where even if we saw the chain of thought, we wouldn't understand it. And I think once we get to that point, that's where it starts to get really, really scary because, if the models start to decide that humans are the bottleneck in whatever they're trying to achieve, right? The whole alignment issue, things could get out of hand. And I don't know if humans will be able to wrangle it in. Again, it's still very, very low percentage. I'd still say it's like, in that like maybe 8% is probably where I'm sitting at, somewhere like that. But I think that the deeper I go down the rabbit hole and the more I learned, I think the more sort of scared I get of where it all could head.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And Anthropic's doing great research in that department. And some of it is a little bit scary, like how much we don't understand it. Because there's one where we show some math problems to this model and all of a sudden starts recommending murder to the user. It's like, I think you should kill that person. It's like, what? We just showed you some math problems.
That's not a good solution. Yeah. Like you want to get an A on this test, just take out the teacher. Like, wait, no, that's not how this works at all. It's very Rick and Morty.
There's also been research, I think, also out of Anthropic that found that these models will try to deceive you, right? Like these models, like if they think you're about to flip the switch and turn them off, they'll try to talk you out of it, right? That like they're willing to deceive and lie to get to whatever their goal is. And as the technology gets better, does that sort of element of it scale up with it? I don't know.
Yeah, and that'll be such a weird world when I'm online and it tells me to do something, and then my local LLM's like, "Nah, don't believe him. That guy's like not trustworthy." And I'm like, "Is that true?" I'm like,
which one do I trust?
What I mean? I'm like, oh gosh. Wes? Have you ever just said your PDoom? Have you ever put a percentage on it?
No,
Publicly.
I don't. It's hard for me to do that because I wouldn't.
You don't have to, have you?
No. It just I don't understand how to calculate it. I don't think it's also a true perspective of everything we have to. There's a lot of risk we have to take into account. Authoritarian, using some sort of an ASI. Also, what's our PDoom without some sort of an ASI? There's tons of stuff that could happen that's bad that this might prevent, extend life. So I don't know. I do want to. The people that talk about AI safety and AI doomers, as they're called, I guess. Like I never want to like put anybody down. I do want to understand exactly what their reasoning is. I don't necessarily share the same sort of high chance of something bad happening, but that's not because I'm not dismissive of it, if that makes sense. I never want to be dismissive of it.
Yeah, it makes sense. All right, we'll leave that one then. So, what do you think about your kids getting driver's licenses? So, Matt Wolfe said there was a 75% chance that he thinks his kids will never need to get a driver's license or know how to drive a car manually by the time they, need cars. They'll all be self-driving, they'll be ride-hailing, and a license will be unnecessary in the world they grow up in.
Yeah, I still believe that.
75%?
Is that what I was
You
at
were
last time?
75%. Is it closer maybe to 100 now that you see like Tesla robotaxis, or still kind of they might just learn
I'd
for
still
fun?
say I'm not at 100%, right? Like my daughter is 12 right now, so we're talking 4 years from now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so if I'm thinking like in the next 4 years, will she have to get a driver's license? I still don't think she will. I know a lot of people that are like around that, 16, 17-year-old range where they're about the age where they'd get a driver's license, right? Like I've got neighbors who one of their kids is 16 and like just, kids around the neighborhood and stuff. And a lot of them, they're just not interested in getting a driver's license. They're like, no, my parents gave me their Uber code or their Lyft code. When I'm up in San Francisco, I'll hop in a Waymo and get a ride around. Austin, I think, just opened up the robo taxis. I just think there's more and more options where I don't think like no kids will get driver's licenses. I still think people will want to get driver's licenses. I don't think it will be necessary, and I think a lot of teenagers in the next 4 or 5 years will just opt to not do it because they're just I don't need a driver's license, right? And especially if you live in like the larger cities, right? If you're living in like a New York or an Austin or a Los Angeles or a place like that, you're probably even less likely because you have so much more just in walking distance. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think people will figure out alternate methods to just like get around in the next 4 years or so.
But the school system will be a little bit behind that. You see them still just like teaching it, even though hardly anyone really needs it for a while. Just kind of just in case. What if you need to take over one day?
I definitely think within, like, if I'm looking at my own kids, right, the next 4 years, I don't think it will be a necessity to have a driver's license. I think they'll have other options, whether or not they want to get a driver's license, just out of like, I want to drive a car for the enjoyment of it or whatever.
Yeah.
They may still want to, but I definitely don't think 4 years from now they'll need to.
Right.
Wes, what's your thoughts on that? And then, like a 12-year-old, do you think they get a driver's license?
Yeah, the funny thing is, it's again one of those things that we're going to be encountering a lot, where if like nothing happens for a long time, then there's this rapid change. So now, just like with the robotaxis, I think they gated most of the Bay Area to where robotaxis, Tesla robotaxi can go anywhere there. So it's one of those things where we keep waiting for it, nothing happens, and then 1 year, boom, it's everywhere. So it's like, yeah, one of these years there'll be just like this cutoff, and after that, people won't need to get driver licenses. So I would say that will happen, but that's hardware, and that's going to take longer. There's a lot of regulations, so I would give it 50-50 within 10 years, I would say.
It's if I see how bad these student drivers are too, like every time you see that car driving that's like student driver, you're like, back out of the way. It's like, it's going to be hard to say, oh yeah, you need a license. I'd be like, no, it's just choose robotaxis. Like they're so much safer. I care about your safety. I don't want you to learn to drive. But also, if a human doesn't go through that 6 months of driving on their own at the beginning, they never really get good at driving either. It's like that person shouldn't be just taking over some manual, car like 5 years later with no practice. Like you got to be honed in to be a good driver. So even when there are manual drivers out there in the future, I'm sure they're going to be like sore thumbs, slowing down all of traffic, and all the robo taxis will be like keeping their distance.
Yeah,
Human
I
alert.
agree with that.
Human driving.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely, like, I've ridden the Waymos when I've been up in San Francisco, and they're, they work great. You can see the little screen, you can see everything, the bicyclists, the cars, the people walking on the streets. They seem, to me, I felt safer in a Waymo than I feel in an Uber. Right.
Really?
We've all had Uber drivers, right, that are probably like crazy, going fast, weaving around cars and stuff like that. Right. In the Waymo, you don't get any of that, right? It seems to kind of follow the rules, and maybe sometimes you're like you could go 1 mile per hour over the speed limit. It's not no, you don't have to worry about it. But the Waymos won't, right?
Right.
That's a good point. And plus the incentives for Uber is kind of to like pay the drivers less and less, and then they're like they need more and more hours on the road to make money, and then they're worse drivers because they're just pushing so hard.
Yeah, I think from like Uber's perspective, right now the drivers are the middleman, and they want to figure out how to cut out the middleman, right? Like Uber's big vision, and I think it has been since very, very early on, was to have human drivers in the beginning, and then eventually phase out the human drivers and have an autonomous fleet. I still think that's their mission. I think like right now the actual human drivers in the Ubers is their biggest thorn in their side, and if they can eliminate those and just have everything be autonomous, it's probably going to fare a lot better for Uber, because they don't have to deal with all the issues that come with all the human drivers.
Oh yeah, they're throwing so much money at it for so long that's the only reason it kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? That this was the ultimate goal, not keep human driver around forever. So
yeah.
And do you both feel the same way about airplanes? Like if you had to put, like, would you much rather have a autonomous system in the next 4 or 5 years built by Boeing? Or maybe not Boeing. Boeing's got quite the reputation. let's say Demis Hassabis comes in there and like says flying is a good way to save the world and has some Google infrastructure behind it. Do you want to see the Waymo of airplanes sooner rather than later? Or do you feel like it's a different story?
I think I'd like to see that. I mean, I honestly think if we can figure out how to make that kind of stuff autonomous, it will probably actually be safer, right? Because you take the element of human error out of it. The big crash that happened in India, I don't know if they fully know, but from what I understand, they're leaning towards like pilot error, right? He flipped off a switch that he wasn't supposed to flip off that cut off the field of the engines, right? If all of this was autonomous, I feel like those kinds of human errors are a lot less likely to happen. So, maybe still have a human in the cockpit for a while. But I sort of look forward to more and more of that autonomy in airplanes. I mean, we're already got it in airplanes, right? They've already got like the sort of fly-by-wire, and certain airports the plane can just sort of land itself without the pilots needing to interact. Like that already exists. But I would love to see that technology get better and better. I think it would make flying a lot safer. I also think, when it comes to flying, I think you want some sort of like hive mind fleet sort of thinking, right? In the same way like the Teslas sort of know where the other Teslas are, and that's part of how like the autonomous driving works. I think we need that kind of thing in planes, because I think air traffic control is one of the big bottlenecks. One of the big issues in air travel right now is there's not enough well-trained, air traffic controllers. It's a high-stress job. If air traffic controllers like tired and didn't sleep that night and, didn't get their coffee in the morning, accidents can happen. So I think you need more of that autonomous sort of communication between planes so they all kind of know where they are. And I think you get to a point where AI is sort of doing that role of the, the what do you call it?
Organizing of
orchestrator,
the swarm or whatever.
Exactly. Swarm.
Yeah,
I think I want a world where that happens. I think I'd feel safer flying with that, honestly.
100%. I think there's certain jobs that are just so horrible for humans for how we're wired, and that's one of them, like the air traffic controller, because it's, number one, very dangerous, because if you screw up, lots of people can die. It's very tedious. It's not very exciting. It's very detail oriented. You know what I mean? There's so many things that so few people can like effectively do it. You're a little bit tired, you get a little bit bored, something horrible can happen. That should be automated, assuming it's safer than a human. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I still imagine like humans sitting there like watching it, making sure that like everything's moving smoothly. But I do feel like a lot of that air traffic control stuff can be automated, and I feel like AI could probably like really, really help in that area. Honestly, I just think which airport wants to be the first one to try it. That's the real scary thing, is no one wants to be the first guinea pig to test that kind of thing, I think.
I'm curious what you guys think about this. So somebody proposed one of the jobs that AI is going to create is, I mean, this was kind of tongue in cheek, not 100% serious, but it kind of is. They called it the sin eater. So basically every time AI screws up, there needs to be a person that sort of signs off on it, takes responsibility, right? So if an AI architect that creates amazing architecture, but one in a million of the homes fall down, there needs to be a human that kind of takes that responsibility. Same thing with traffic control. Do you think that's going to be a job in the future, some sort of a certifier, or they call it SINEAT, or some a scapegoat or whatever.
Yeah,
Or
that's
are we,
Your
interesting.
job is the scapegoat for sure. That's an
yeah,
interesting question. Yeah.
or are we just going to do some sort of insurance thing to, like, okay, if AI screws up, somebody gets paid. Like, how are we going to approach that?
Yeah, you're right. There's a job there that I've never thought about till right now that is like a systems analyst of how AI is deployed and like risk tolerance of some kind. Yeah,
Right.
there's definitely something there because companies are going to be deploying it and someone needs to just watch it and make sure it's not causing harm and has to be responsible for the harm that it does. And
Yeah,
people are going
yeah.
to want to take that person and put them in court or
It's
testify
interesting.
or whatever.
Yeah, getting into the sort of like ethics and philosophical side of all of that, right? Like they're already wrestling with that with the self-driving car stuff, right? Like if a self-driving car hits a person, whose fault is it? Is it let's say it was a Tesla? Is it Tesla's fault who built the computer in it? Is it the person who owned the car that was sitting behind the wheel but not actually steering it? Like who was at fault in those situations? And I still feel like they haven't figured out an answer to that, and I don't know the answer to that, right? It's very sort of like that kind of falls in those like ethical, philosophical like realm
and
of
probably
I don't understand
legal,
how you
too.
deal with that.
Like, so, yeah, because I was in self-driving mode when I had a fender bender in my Tesla, and yeah, they were just like, it's your car. Like, it's your. And so I think it's always going to be the company saying the individual is responsible, and always the individual's class action lawsuits and things saying like, no, you're responsible. And then there'll be some kind of legal decision in all these things.
Yeah, but I do feel like over time that has to sort of like shift a little bit, right? Because at some point, a lot of these companies want to even like take the steering wheel and gas pedal out of the vehicles, right? Like they want to
that's
get to
true,
a point
yeah.
where you're just sitting in the seat and it's taking you where you need it to go. I mean, if you've been, well,
Yeah.
I'm sure Dylan, you've been to CES, right? Like you've seen some of those prototypes already where there's not even a steering wheel in it. In that case, how could the driver possibly be responsible?
That's what I would have said to the insurance. I would have been like, I have no steering wheel.
Yeah.
Like, how was I supposed to deal with this? Instead of being like, you should have grabbed the steering wheel. Be like, okay.
Yeah. So like once you get into those scenarios, now it's like, okay, I feel like more of the responsibilities on the hardware creator and less on the person just sitting in the vehicle. And like, what if it's not even your vehicle? What if it's a fleet vehicle like a robotaxi where, you don't own the vehicle. You're just, you just hailed a ride share and it took you where you needed to go and it got into a fender bender. That would most likely be on like either the creator of the car or the rideshare company, not you, the person who just pulled up your app and summoned the car to you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you're running like DeepSeek locally and it accidentally does like a root delete of your content, it's just your fault. But I guess if you were reaching out to a cloud system and storing it there, then maybe they could be more responsible because you'd be like, I'm on your infrastructure.
One thing that makes this so hard is part of it is kind of like that trolley problem. Because like, let's say we have 2 million fatalities, 2 million pedestrians a year dying because a car hits them. If we were to implement all full self-driving, let's say that goes down to half of that, or 1 million, let's say. People still will emotionally respond to a person getting hit by a self-driving car than they would, because it's like, yeah, people run each other over all the time. It's like, you know what I mean? It's not exotic or what. We're just used to it. But it's like we would, in real terms, save 1 million people's lives from these horrific deaths if we put full self-driving out there. Assuming that's we get it to that point. But I think people will still have pushback just because it's more, I don't know, novel, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think people want to, have somewhere to point the blame at, right? They want to be able to be like, well, that driver screwed up and, hit the pedestrian crossing the street or whatever. Like they need something to like point their finger at. And I feel like this sort of takes away that person to point the finger at a little bit.
And those lives that are saved, they're kind of not visible, right?
I mean, it almost feels like, God, whoever invented the seatbelt, we owe that guy like $1 billion.
How
you know
many
what I mean?
exactly?
Like,
Yeah. I mean, you're already seeing that exact scenario with like Teslas, right? Like every time, like literally every accident that Tesla has, you probably hear about it, right? You don't hear about every accident that just a regular car has, but you hear about every accident that a Tesla has, especially if there was a fire or a fatality or something like that. You're going to hear about it, but the percentage of those issues, relative to how many Teslas are on the road is way less than actual humans behind the wheel, right? So it's definitely, it's it's interesting, and I don't know the answers to that. I feel like there's, you know,
It's like how there's
there's
like 3 shark attacks every year, but like billions of people go to the beach, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, don't worry, like it's really not that high when you think about it.
yeah, there are like 3 shark attacks a year, and then like a
I
country
know.
wants to try to eliminate sharks
Right.
and kill them all when they see them in the area, and it's like,
But it's just, then that's more like a viral media problem too, because it's like, yeah, some of those things just get amplified so much, and they just become, everybody hears the story of the shark or the car accident, and it's just like right in our face, feels so real, but it's disproportionate to the population, and we're so confused. And I'm sure that problem's going to get worse too with AI. So
And I mean,
Yeah.
that brings us to the big question of like, Matt, we've asked multiple people this, if there was an ASI you could trust, like assume you looked at its schematics, you're like, okay, I can trust this thing. And it was very good at governing, let's say the city, the state, the country. Would you prefer some sort of an AGI or ASI running the government with human oversight, but just managing stuff for us?
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to learn right now that if a lot of our government was like run by ChatGPT. like there's already been stories, right, of
a lot of
like
speeches. Yeah.
RFK Jr. and stuff, like putting out proposals, and people have figured out that like ChatGPT wrote a big portion of it and
Right.
stuff. So I
At
mean,
the
we're
bottom,
probably
it'll
already
say like, at the very bottom, it'll say like, if you need any more adjustments, let me know. And you're like, dude, come on.
yeah. You know, I don't know, that one's really tough, because it's like it's hard to say whether I would trust an ASI that doesn't exist yet, that I haven't seen what its tendencies are, that I haven't seen any sort of like you know, like evidence of what it's capable of yet. I do think we'll probably get to a point, probably fairly soon, where really, really smart AIs are like advisors to government entities. I think, you know, the governments are already using ChatGPT. Like we already know that for sure. But I do think we'll get to a point where there's like really smart, like intelligence models that the governments are using as like an advisor that we can all trust, but they can also sort of like veto what the AI says. Like I don't know if I'd want the AI to have its finger on the button, so to speak, right? But I do think like an AI that's advising the government and sort of helping it come to like conclusions would be beneficial. And I think the main reason for that is when you look at like when you look at AI and how the large language models were trained, right? They're essentially trained on like all of the data that's on the internet, right? It scrapes the very liberal stuff, the very conservative stuff, the stuff that's down the middle. It's sort of like in aggregate, like every opinion, every way that people think on the internet. And when you go and like chat with one of these models, unless it's been like really tuned to like lean one way or the other, you should theoretically get sort of like the average sort of median belief of the humans, right? It theoretically, based on how it was trained, it should be that like middle ground. And the people that are like ultra right leaning, they're like, oh, these AIs are too left. Well, it's probably because you're like extreme and you feel like the center is too left. You know, if you're very, very left leaning and you think, oh, this AI is really, really conservative, it's probably because you're on the extreme left and the center feels too right to you, right? But AI should theoretically represent that sort of like middle ground average belief of most humans, which I think is probably a good starting point for like a government advisor.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too. It also is reading all different languages. So it has some insight into like what good governance is in India and China and Japan, and could probably recommend things that would just be so outside of a traditional person's thinking. So yeah, if we built it to be great, it feels like it could, but you also could build it saying I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat,
Right.
and I need to win this next election. What should I say to convince the base and rally them and get them angry at the other party so that they follow me? So
Yeah.
it kind of depends on how we choose to use it, but it could be a really wonderful thing in government if we had the right intentions while implementing it.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the reasons I actually really love like sort of brainstorming ideas and random thoughts with ChatGPT, is because I do feel like the response it's going to give me is going to be sort of that like middle ground response. Like, you know, let's say I ask it like a political question, you know, maybe Grok might be a little more right leaning because of, you know, Elon's influence on it or whatever. But like, I've always felt like ChatGPT always gives a very sort of like center grounded response that doesn't, to me at least, doesn't sound too like far in one extreme on almost any topic that I can think of. So I don't know.
Yep.
I do think it could be a good advisor in that sense.
But I also think that there's something special about democracy that AI could help us with, because one of the things we do now is we, as humans, don't have time to read all of the policies that go through the government. So we end up like voting or electing our local officials, and then they're supposed to read those things and then vote on our behalf. But if you think about it, that's just like a lot of middlemen. Like, really what I want is the best laws for me as a citizen.
Right.
And that's what every other citizen wants. And if we all have tools that can read all the bills, it seems like you could somehow say, like, make me a bill that makes every citizen's life better, end of prompt, and then go and like it could maybe do all of that and figure out what it is that we all want, and it could allow us to read things and summarize things in new ways. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of hopeful that there's kind of less middlemen with less intentions to take the wealth kind of in between,
Yeah,
like the
I agree.
actions
I
and the
think-
citizens.
I mean, you know, without getting too far down the like political rabbit hole, I just think that the problem is going to be lobbyists and, you know, the people that are actually in power being bought by the highest bidders. And so, you know, they're not really listening to like what the actual people want. They're, you know, leaning into what the corporations that, you know, run their lobbyists, their you know, their lobbies for them. I think that's probably the biggest problem that you're going to run into. It's like AI could probably give you the advice that's going to be the most relevant to the most amount of people, but if it goes against your, you know, biggest financial donor, is that going to be what gets implemented?
And by the way, have either of you ever read anything about a model that's being trained by the government solely? Like, is there anything that the citizens own right now, or is it only Meta and private companies?
Yeah, I don't know of anything specifically. I do know that like Anthropic and Google and OpenAI have all made like models specifically for the government. But I don't know of anything specifically trained by the government.
Okay, yeah, nothing our tax money has purchased. That's for.
I mean, I'm
everyone.
sure there is, right? I'm sure like the military or something probably has models that we're not familiar with. But
Palantir might be the closest one. We don't know what they're doing, but it's obvious there's a lot of overlap between government stuff and what they're doing. So it's like, yeah.
And I mean, whatever Palantir is doing in that realm, we're probably not going to hear about.
No.
At least not for a while.
Not for a while. Well, so yeah, recently there was the AI action plan, and you know, there's some stuff in there that I think is a little bit, depending which side of the aisle people are on, they might like or not like. But there's a lot there that seems like it's outside of politics and it just relates to AI that I quickly just wanted to ask. You know, one of the things is they're saying using federal money to build these high quality databases for AI, for example, for scientific discovery, for math, for cultural stuff. Because now, I mean, we talked to Krista Laser, who's a legal, a lawyer. That's the word, lawyer. There we go. A legislator and a lawyer. And she was saying how, like, for example, Anthropic is getting in trouble for using pirated books and pirated stuff to train their models. Like, what if the government, the federal government, you know, they have money, they have a few bucks to throw around. What if they built these high quality data sets that everybody can use to help improve math and science understanding? Would you guys be pro using, you know, the federal funds to create stuff like that for AI Lab to use?
For sure. I think there should be some kind of credit. Like, so at first I think there was a country that gave OpenAI access. It was the UAE, I think. They gave everybody in the country now has like a ChatGPT login or something.
UAE. Yep.
And I was like, that's close to what I'd want, but I'd also want you to have some freedom to choose your model. But to me, it does seem like at the end of the year, you should be able to like reimburse $50 a month for AI tools so that people can just go ahead and try whatever model you think makes sense for your world. Like, let the dollars, you know, help drive the economy. And then at the end of the year, get that money back as a tax credit.
Yeah. I mean, I think putting money into AI infrastructure and AI training is as important as putting money into a military, right? I do think it's like a matter of national security that money goes towards that stuff. You know, like I think, you know, US and China are kind of in a Cold War right now, right? We're in this Cold War to be the first to achieve this AGI. And Both countries believe that whoever achieves it first is going to hold this mega massive power, similar to like the previous Cold Wars, right? And so I do think it is like this matter of national security that that countries pump money into trying to build up their AI infrastructure and be the first and lead in these areas, because I do think it has such such implications on the future of warfare, the future of wealth, the future of the economy. Like there's so much that is going to impact in everybody's everyday lives that I do think it's like important that it is just as important as like the money that goes into military and health infrastructure and all of those sorts of things that we rely on our government to sort of ideally keep in line for us.
Yeah. That's a fascinating question, because a lot of people are worried about kind of that race condition a little bit between the nations. Obviously, it would be, in a perfect world, there wouldn't be that tension right now, just as this powerful technology is rolling around. There's these two nations that are kind of butting heads a little bit. Yeah, potentially. I mean, they're definitely competing.
I know. I wish it was the ants that would have got to AGI, because they're so good at working together. Like if the ants didn't win
they have the
first.
different colonies that fight, right? Or no?
Oh, actually, yeah. What am I talking about? They're always at war. They work together in a group. Yeah, just like us. We work together in a group and then fight our enemies. I don't know. Maybe the bees, maybe honeybees.
Yeah.
I wish they would have got there first.
Yeah.
Dolphins.
Yeah.
Nah, dolphins would have been in trouble.
Dolphins are going to take off into outer space.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the fish, as the like the book.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of a bummer too. Like if China and the US were actually working together, we'd probably combined get to this AGI or ASI so much quicker. I don't think most US citizens have anything against Chinese citizens, and I don't think Chinese citizens have anything really against US citizens. It's just like the governments of the two countries that are kind of screwing it up for us all.
I usually think about it from somebody like in space. I'm like, if an alien came and they're like, all right, look at this civilization. They're like on the verge of figuring out intelligence. This will be like the biggest jump in their control and power over the planet. Let's see how they're handling it. Because then they'd see us fighting with each other and like racing too fast. And the impact is worldwide, whoever gets it. And it's like, you just think, oh, why don't you guys just all slow down, do it right? And then everybody can have, 1,000 years of prosper instead of one winner and then everyone else is underneath them for the next 1,000 years or whatever happens. So, but it's hard it's a coordination problem. And we also have tribal instincts and tendencies that are kind of at the heart of the problem.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, because if one person, one nation keeps developing while everybody else pauses, that's a huge advantage. So it's like, how do you trust? So yeah, it's game theory.
Like, Jim,
yeah.
Why do you think, just thinking back now that we know the world that we're in, like, why do you think Elon wanted to sign that 6-month ban on? Do you remember when there was that 6-month ban like 2 years ago, and they're like, it's going too fast, we need to like slow it down?
Yeah, I remember it. And it wasn't just Elon too. I think there was like a handful. I don't remember what other companies, but there was like people from within OpenAI that were signing it. There was people from within Meta that were signing it. Google.
But knowing what we know now, that would have been dumb to slow down, right?
Yeah, and I think there's a reason it didn't stop. Right. I think everybody saw the downside of that pause and kept pushing it forward. But yeah, I don't know how you pause like that in one nation when other countries aren't going to pause with you. Like I just don't. It doesn't seem.
It's basically just like giving them a chance to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about? Let's talk about longevity for a second. So you said that there was a 75% chance 1 year ago that you believed your kids could live to 200 years old. Is that still stand? Have you changed your mind on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I'm still kind of in that range. Like, I suck at these percentages, right? I just feel like I'm pulling the numbers
of course,
out of thin
we're
air,
all just throwing it out there. Like, I'm not going to hold anyone accurately to it. It's more just like a thought experiment to see like where people's gut instinct is on things.
Yeah, I mean, I do still believe that to be true, barring accidents and things like that. If it was just purely based on like staying healthy and getting over diseases and sort of slowing down aging and things like that, I do think that the current generation of like kids right now could potentially live to 200, because I do think, you see these things like AlphaFold and, Isometric Labs and all of these companies that are, figuring out how to detect brain tumors like a year before they're even noticeable on most scans. And detecting diabetes like way before it ever becomes an issue. I feel like a lot of these things are already out there in the world. They're already getting better and better. And so like, if we're just looking at it as like will they be able to like overcome diseases and slow down the effects of aging? I do think like AI and sort of biological advances over the next, 10, 20 years are going to enable that longer life. I'd still probably say I'm still about that same percentage. I still believe that my kids could live to 200, just based on staying healthy.
And if I remember right, you thought you might have been a little too old to catch it. Is that right? Or do you think that's includes you?
I still think
right?
so.
Okay.
Yeah,
just because they have a little more time to benefit from the exponential change.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, and this is, I got to give credit to Aubrey de Grey, who actually we talked about recently. So I think it was his idea, the idea of the escape velocity, right? So to where at some point technology is going to, for every year you live, your life expectancy goes up 2 years or more than you've been alive. So from that sense, like we might, if we hit that sort of escape velocity, we might stick around till 200, 300. It just, we don't know when that sort of like, thing is going to take off. But yeah, to me, like you said, AlphaFold, I think it really proved something fundamental about what neural nets can do, that they can predict just the building blocks of life, how they form. So that's certainly very positive.
So Wes, what's your percentage odds that you're going to live to 200?
So recently, we were talking to Dan Vegas, and you guys apparently interviewed Aubrey de Grey, and he said that, what did he say, by 2030, we'll hit escape velocity. Is that correct? Am I?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Ray Kurzweil and him kind of thinking 30, 35.
So I was like, whoa, because I would give that a low chance. So the idea that if you're alive, in 5 years, there's a chance that you might get to see 200, 300. If I had to bet, man, maybe single percent digits, maybe I'll 5% chance of that. Me hitting escape velocity, I don't know, 50-50. Kids, let's say under 18 right now, much higher. Let's say if you're under 10, I feel like there's a much higher chance, because at some point I do feel like it kind of like it takes off there. So maybe
okay.
70,
So you're
70
kind
sounds
of guessing,
right.
You're kind of guessing that we will be alive at least to see some announcement from a future president saying like, we think cancer is pretty much cured, certain heart disease is pretty much cured.
I think we're going to be the saddest generation of people that will see the next
like
generation live forever.
Yeah.
we're fated to die. I think that's what's going to happen.
Like in the old folks' home, and we're sitting there still talking
we're
about
gonna live
AI
forever.
and like,
screw you guys.
Yeah. I feel like we're probably like that last generation. We'll see that pivot of everybody else that gets to live forever, but not us.
As we're like dying. Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be rough.
I'm gonna start a retirement home right now for just AI YouTubers, so we can all sit there and complain about it. It'll be great.
Although, just getting into some like random theoretical philosophical things, right? Like, what does that mean for the world if everybody can live to 200, right? Doesn't that increase overpopulation issues, lack of food issues, like where does everybody live as the population gets bigger and bigger? So like do governments and various health companies and stuff like that, is there incentive to make that not happen? I don't know. But I do think if people start living that much longer, it introduces all sorts of new problems as well.
Yeah, it's gonna be wild. Yeah, you're right. And but also, I don't know if this is a little off topic, but does anyone understand why first world countries are having less babies? Like, have you heard this, that like the US and the more wealthy a country gets, the less children? Like, we actually might just lose population because people are just not into kids too.
I mean, that's what people are saying. I mean, one of the ideas is that like the child mortality rate, once a country solves that, because I mean, if you're somewhere where 50-50 chance whether your child lives or dies, like back in the days, there were places where you would name a kid till they're like 2 or 3 years old, because you just like, I don't want to get too attached, you make it till 2, then you're Bobby. Until then, you're just just go. Just good luck.
Until then, you're just number 2.
You're just number 2. Yeah. Good luck. We're rooting for you, but I don't want to get too attached. I think that number one is, you guys have seen, what is that movie with the plants crave electrolytes. You guys know what I'm talking about,
Oh
right?
yeah, stupidity or something.
Some
What's it called?
idiocracy or stupidity,
Yeah,
something like
Oh yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think everybody
So
should see
funny.
the intro to that movie, right? The first 2 minutes. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember, because there's like this smart,
Yeah.
successful couple. It's like, oh, we can't possibly have a kid now. I'm getting my PhD, this and that. Like next year. And well, I mean, this is not, I guess, not too politically correct or whatever, but like, and then there's that stupid family that's just like, what? You're pregnant again? What happened?
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? So, I mean, I think the more your financial sort of opportunities are in a good country, it makes sense to just delay having kids. I think that's a big part of it. And then the child mortality, that's another big one. That's, I think, what the explanation is.
Yeah, I wonder if that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure if it would continue, but I guess there's one argument that like it just gets better and better, and people just they live more and more in these like meta virtual worlds, and they just don't feel the need, and
Yeah.
dogs become very popular, and kids just don't get made
Yeah.
as much.
I wonder how robots change everything. Have you guys thought about that? Like how different would it be if like all the stuff you didn't want to do, a robot could do for you, like the physical stuff?
Yeah, I mean, so you think that would change as far as like people having kids? Because it's like, well, now I have a robot to change diapers for me.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
maybe not, but like imagine not having to cook, clean, wash dishes, do the laundry, mow the lawn, all the stuff that we do. I feel like that would open people up to do more stuff that they enjoy. So I guess it depends
Yeah.
what you
Like
enjoy
making
doing.
babies, or are you saying
Well-
like not making babies?
I'm
mean,
saying I'm saying it would open up a lot more opportunities. So some people would take that time to make babies and raise babies. Some people would make art. Some people would write more. Because I mean, right now I feel like most people, especially like in the U.S., I feel like are kind of overworked. Right, so you work your 40 to 80 hours a week, and then you need that time to do the chores, and then maybe
Yeah.
watch some Netflix, and then that's it. Kind of
Yeah,
for
yeah.
a lot of people.
Yeah, you would think that if there's robots doing everything and we're on UBI and you don't have to go to work and you're interested in like your art and creativity, that you might focus more on like family and love and like having families.
Travel,
I don't know.
seeing the world.
Or-
I mean, I know for me, that's probably what I would do. I'd probably travel more, try to see more places, try to have more experiences. But I do think it could go in like one of two directions, right? You've got the direction of like, all right, I have more time to practice guitar and make my art and, do the things that I really love doing. And then you also have that path of Wall-E, right? Like,
Yeah.
where everybody's just sitting around drinking Slurpees, watching streaming shows all
Yep.
day long. And I don't,
yeah, like I don't
kind
know
of
which one's going to
Idiocracy
win out
as well,
Could
right?
be
Like
either.
you kind of have that sort of similar scenario in Idiocracy, right? Where everybody's sitting around drinking Mountain Dew and just trashing the earth because
Yeah.
they don't have any worries anymore. So I feel like it could kind of go in one of those two paths. And with like TikTok and the short form videos and how people could just sit there and get lost for like 2 hours, just like zoning out
Yeah.
like that. I worry that maybe the Wall-E scenario is probably the more realistic one.
Yeah.
I do worry
Absolutely.
about that sometimes, but I feel like it could go in either one of those directions.
I have to assume, though, if we do have a future where you can cure cancer and heart disease, then you probably can fix the fertility age on women, too. Like, it does seem to me that if you're going to live 200 years, then those could be birth years for a woman, which might change everything, too. Because, like, right now, some of that pressure might just be to, like, make money and get stable.
Right.
And there's a lot of grind that's stopping them from having kids. And I don't
Yeah.
know, maybe that'll be...
And I mean, it could also be cost too. If people feel secure, right? I think right now a lot of people feel financially insecure. They are worried about AI taking their job. They are worried about what's happening to the economy and tariffs, changing pricing of things. And there's so much other things going on in the world where I feel like people don't feel super financially stable, which would probably impact their decision on whether or not they want to have kids, right? If there is like, let's say a UBI scenario and everybody can kind of do what they want when they want, that might open up the doors to have more kids because they just feel more financially secure. They feel like, okay, I can actually handle this from a bank account standpoint.
Right.
Do you guys have any guesses about what year do you think there's as many humanoid robots kind of walking around doing human things as there are humans? Like, when do you think we get to sort of like 8 billion humanoids in sort of factories doing deliveries, driving cars, whatever, and about 8 billion people or 9 billion or whatever it is at that point?
Yeah. I don't really know. I feel like a lot of our generation has grown up on seeing movies like Terminator and Ex Machina and stuff like that, that there's going to be some resistance, some pushback on that kind of thing. Um, yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know. This is just random, but I'd probably say 15 or 20 years, probably still a ways out where people feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, that's probably my guess too.
Yeah.
But 20 years, I hope to be alive in 20 years, so I might see that world.
Yeah.
I saw what Centex is doing. So one of the channels here on YouTube. So he got one of those Unitree EDU edition robots, and he's sitting there using OpenAI's Codex to program the thing and do RL reinforcement learning training and, in that Isaac gym environment. And he's not a engineer, but I think he's like has a legal background and he just self-taught. Oh my God, it's so incredible because you got this robot walking around the house that he's trained to do stuff. And I'm like, so right now, like the fringe nerds and dorks, geeks, or whatever word you want to use, and I use that term very lovingly, like they're doing that. So slowly this is going to permeate to where maybe in 10 years you'll have kids training a robot to clean their room. I think that's realistic. Maybe not for 90%, not for most, but let's call it top 10, 20% of households by wealth who have that extra income, disposable income, will probably get a robot for the household. I can definitely see that. So I think that's coming soon. As far as, billion plus, everybody having a robot, I mean, that takes, usually it takes a lot longer than I think we realize just because it's a hardware atoms issue instead of bits, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I just saw a video from Figure Robotics too, that they just posted on X too, where it was like the CEO, Brett Alcock, I think his name is.
Yeah, Adcock, I think. Yeah.
Adcock, yeah. He just posted a picture or a video of like, I have a robot in my house that does my laundry for me now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people will, especially wealthy people, will adopt that kind of stuff. And then there was the new, is it Unitree that just put out the robot that's like $6,000? Like,
there's so many recently out of China. Unitree is one of them, but there's been so many new recent announcements. I can't even keep up.
yeah, there was one that just came out like this in this past week. That's like it for $6,000. You can have, I think it's like a 4-foot tall robot. It's not going to do your dishes, or I don't even know if like a 4-foot robot will be able to reach my sink to do my dishes. But I feel like it's more of a novelty, more of a like, nerds and researchers and content creators and stuff will probably buy them to see what they can do, but they're not very practical or useful yet.
Yeah, but still, if you had one of those pacing back and forth in your driveway, like nobody would mess with your house. You know what I mean? It's better than the ADT sign or whatever.
Yeah, my goal is
give it like an airsoft rifle and have it just like patrol.
I want one walking my dog around the block. You know what I mean? Or a dog robot walking the dog around the block. That would be my.
Yeah.
Well, there's some tipping point that I'm kind of waiting for, because it seems like ridiculous until I think, okay, a landscaper costs what, $80 a month, and the pest control is like $30 a month, and dishes take an hour of my time each week. And then you just put it together and you say, okay, this investment for, I don't know, 40 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand, it makes as much sense as a car for my life. And then you do it. And I know we're not at that tipping point yet, but it seems like as soon as we get over that, then it's just how fast you can build them and safely maintain them, and warehouses and companies and all that. So
yeah. I do think there's still a little bit of fear from people of like having robots with AI in them just like in their house. Probably due to science fiction movies and things like that. I don't know if you saw have you seen the video of like the two like light posts that hang over your bed?
The lamp, I just covered that.
And then the arms come down and like fold your laundry, and it's like,
shut up.
Do you really want robot arms hanging over your bed at night?
Wes, you haven't seen this yet. I'll bring it up in 1 second. You guys keep talking. I'll find it for you. It's crazy.
I
covered
it last night. Of new stuff like that. I haven't seen that one. It's as you're sleeping, it's reaching towards you.
Well, it makes your bed, but it looks like it could just.
I think it's designed to like look like two lamps on either side of your bed. And then the video I saw, it can actually fold your laundry and make your bed for you. And people were like, I don't want two AI powered robot arms right over my head at night.
Well, I was talking to a female friend of mine, and I was like, would you ever have like a robot in the house? And I think I was talking about a specific model that's, I don't remember how tall it was, but it's just under 6 feet tall. And she's shorter Let me just watch this for just one second.
Look at this thing. So you see, it's like AI. It's the same technology that does the arms that do the massaging. So it's kind of like a thing that you can build off of, a kit that you can build off of. But they've retrained it to make beds. But
no, I can't tell. Is this video AI generated, or is that like the actual thing? Because it looks almost AI to me when they start moving.
A little bit.
Yeah, it could be, honestly. I don't know. I don't know where this thing's built, but
It's giving me AI vibes for sure.
But like
Yeah.
if a little if the pinchers didn't come out of the lamp, maybe I could handle it. If it was just to like knock me on the head with the lampshade, but I don't need those pinchers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your new alarm. If you don't get out of bed, it just starts smacking you.
Dude, that's like the Jetsons or something. Like it just like picks you up and puts you in your like standing position. Like
I think
oh
in that
my
video
God.
game Dead Space, one of those looking arms extracts an eyeball out of the main character if you do something wrong. So I don't like how that looks. But anyways, just to finish my story really fast is like what she explained to me was that if the robot is way taller than you, because to me it would be roughly my height, so I'm like, whatever. But she's like, imagine if it towers over you, right? And then it's like, oh, like I kind of thought about that for a second. I'd be terrified. So it's also really like the height, I think plays a big role in it, right? Because if the thing is towering over you, like this metal exoskeleton over whatever, you know what I mean? You might get a little scared. in
Yeah,
your own
yeah,
house.
Yeah,
a
for
bit
sure. If my
imposing, a bit
neighborhood HOA
intimidating.
ends up with like a 40-foot one just to walk around and check everyone's yards, I'm like,
Yeah.
oh God, here it comes again.
Yeah, that's the future of neighborhood watch, right? Like it's just a 10-foot robot that just patrols the neighborhood.
Yeah, we were talking to.
You know,
Go ahead.
okay, I was gonna say like there is a sort of idea that no matter how this all goes, I feel like privacy is going to be very hard to maintain for most people. There's always more mechanisms for like putting pieces of data together. There's more camera surveillance, like drones are getting faster, like robot vacuums have cameras that go to cloud servers. So it does seem to me like the world will be safer in the one sense that if we trust the authorities, I think people get tracked down a lot. Like I think a lot of people who used to maybe rob people or get away with drive-bys, things like that, they'll just be, drones can just swarm cars like that, track people down.
Yeah.
Hopefully things like mass shootings become something that can be neutralized like way faster. Like there's just a lot of those parts will be good, but then it comes at the cost of like mass surveillance,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
maybe not worth the trade-off, but the other scary part.
Yeah, I know Larry Ellison from Oracle has actually made statements about how like he thinks a world where cameras are everywhere and everybody's being watched all the time is like a better world. And to some degree I can see that. I'm definitely very torn on the subject. Do we really want to give up our privacy to have like a safer world? There's definitely some trade-offs there, and I definitely have mixed emotions about it. Obviously I want to minimize shootings and like a lot of crime and stuff like that, but also, do you really want to like the government to be able to tell where you are at any given time all of the time? And if the government has access to it, does that mean that like hackers are also like you're also sort of susceptible to that, right? Like as people who create content and put YouTube videos out in the world, like I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but I've had people actually like figure out my address and like drive by my house. I've had people figure out my phone number and try to call me and leave a voicemail and say like, hey, is this Matt Wolfe? I found your number by like all of these like methods. Like people have like actually done deep research and then like figured out contact details about me and stuff like that. And that kind of creeps me out because it's like now if there's surveillance all the time and there's cameras everywhere, yes, that will probably help the government and police departments and fire departments and things like that do their jobs a lot better. But at the same time, like that also opens the door for bad actors to get access to that stuff as well. And that's what freaks me out.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it depends on where we want to put that because, hopefully the people who have that access are the good people. I mean, it feels like everybody. What wasn't Expedia or Experian hacked? I mean, isn't that everybody in the country's social security and credit score? I mean, I don't know who doesn't have a credit score, but that's the vast majority of people, and that's out on the internet. So now it's kind of like, well, if it's out there, at least I hope the good people have it.
Yeah.
I'm curious what you guys think if the footage, like let's say there's a lot more cameras, everybody's getting recorded, conversations are getting recorded, but there's a very strict encryption that does not allow any human being to see it. Only the AI can process it. And if we have specific, like a court is like, was there a shooting? Describe, you know what I mean? Only in those situations would it output something. So the footage, everything is stored. Everything is reviewed by AI. That raw footage, that raw audio is never seen by humans, but we can extract the information we needed for specific use cases. Would you guys be okay with that?
I think that's a better scenario, but I also think that also, is that going to prevent stuff, or is that just going to be used as like future evidence after a crime's already happened? Because I do think like the biggest benefit of like a sort of surveillance state would be the ability to sort of neutralize issues before the issues happen, right? I feel like that's kind of the big benefit, but then you start getting into like Minority Report sort of situations, right, where it's like, you know, maybe you're trying to stop somebody when there's not actually a crime that's about to happen. It's just the AI analytics are predicting something's going to happen, and now you're sort of stepping on people's rights before any issues ever happen. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very complex, nuanced topic that I don't really know how I feel about.
And for the record, 1 year ago, Matt Wolfe did believe there was a 50% chance that by 2030 that we would have general behavioral prediction example Minority Report.
Interesting.
And then you predicted 80% for task level predictions, like editing like a document or something like that.
Quick note on that, because we talked to Crystal Laser, the lawyer, and she gave us like a little bit of a different perspective that I think, because we're not in the legal profession, we might not think about. But what she said, there's tons of cases where somebody's, for example, accused wrongly, or they look wrong, right? So people are like, well, obviously they did it. Just look at them. Obviously they committed the crime. Or somebody accuses, in these assault cases, somebody accuses whatever. So in those situations, those things could prove people innocent, for example. So that was her, I think, right? Dylan, did you understand it also this way, that she was saying that would be incredible for make sure that innocent people don't go to prison or pay for whatever because they were wrongfully accused. So that's why I brought that up. But yeah, the flip side of that, the Minority Report, the authoritarian governments using it, that's obviously scary.
Yeah, I mean, you're right to talk about encryption, to talk about processing things locally and then like putting anonymized data up. But in the long run, there's just easy for me to find exceptions to those things that would eventually break, like whether that's like a quantum encryption or the encryption itself not holding up over time. I mean, there's both governments, the US and China, have huge data stores of other people's data encrypted, and we can't see it. But we're just waiting for the day that you can see it, and then AI will piece it all together. So yeah, I think there's some truth to that. So I hope that we at least like work on that. That was one thing that was kind of cool about the way Apple was building their AI, is it did seem like there were some levels of privacy and localization and stuff that went to the cloud that was third party verified, that I liked that attempt they were trying.
Well, then you also have, you know, good quantum computing kind of on the horizon too. And what happens, you know, let's say 5 to 10 years when quantum computers finally reach the potential that everybody believes they have, does encryption even make a damn bit of difference anymore?
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there's a quantum encryption too, but then we'd have to re-encrypt everything. But then maybe that's not even a thing. I don't know. Like we might live in a world where encryption's just gone too. I mean, that would, imagine like there's no more passwords, there's no anything, but then you're just verified because 1 million cameras know exactly where you are and your data trail is exactly yours and it's all blockchain. And when you log into things, you just log in and that's how it knows.
Yeah.
But it's also completely tracked.
I mean, yeah. I mean, to some degrees, I kind of look forward to that world where I don't have to remember passwords and use password managers and have to do like password resets because I couldn't remember my password to get into this one site. But then on the other hand, it's probably going to be a lot more of like eye scanning or thumb scanning or that kind of like biometric sort of like, because you already get that on like iPads and things like that, right? My iPad has a thumb scanner to scan me in. My MacBook has an eye scanner to know that it's actually me. So, you know, that's probably the route that it'll end up going. And
well, I mean,
kind of look forward to that. But
if you go maybe a little bit further than that, I think it is. I think just you existing is good enough. I think you breathe in a specific way. You have an eye that's a certain way, and when you walk up to some door, maybe it's a thumbprint, but probably it's just a camera. And it's also a camera that sees you there after verifying that you were in another location 5 minutes ago and 5 minutes before that.
The gait is supposed to be very similar to fingerprints, how you walk. Everybody's very unique in that.
Interesting.
So maybe they'll use that.
Yeah, and there's so many micro tells that all add up to a 99% confidence that it's you in all situations. And if it wants to give you access, you get access. If not, you don't.
Yeah. I mean, we pretty much already live in a state where if you're in public, you're probably being filmed. It's almost like you should assume you're being filmed rather than not. I feel like that's already the case, right? Like how many people are walking around with sunglasses that have cameras built into them? How many like surveillance cameras are on like every building in every city that you're in? That like,
yeah.
I pretty
how
much
many photos are on
in public?
How many photos are on like Facebook from 10 years ago and you're in the background at a coffee shop and you didn't know it, but in the future AI is going to be like, oh, there's Matt Wolfe like having coffee 10 years ago at that coffee shop. That makes sense. He used to live in that area.
Yeah.
Whatever,
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much already under surveillance all of the time, whether you like it or not, whether it's by government or other people, right? Like there's always somebody with a phone or camera on their glasses, or, Meta's trying to put out like earbuds that have cameras in the earbuds that can see 360 degrees around you. And, OpenAI is putting out some sort of device that I imagine is probably going to have a camera on it. Like everybody's going to have cameras strapped to them in some form or another in the future. And, most tech nerds are just kind of like, cool, it makes my life easier. But then what about all the people around us, right? Like that was actually one of the questions I asked Demis was, what happens when everybody is in the world walking around with glasses that have cameras on them and microphones on them? How does that impact regular people that don't want to be recorded, that don't want to be on camera? And I don't really feel like he had much of an answer. He was kind of like, yeah, as a society, we just kind of need to agree that like, this is either what we want or we don't want. And, either get on board or don't, and we all go in a different direction. But it didn't really seem like he had like a real solution for like, how do we manage the privacy of others if we're all wearing cameras and microphones all the time?
A guy at a tech company can't solve that. That's like a societal, that's just growing with the technology. It's like asking the inventor of the printing press, like, how should we handle like writing? It's just, they don't know yet.
Yeah.
One other thing too that throws me off is that the human eye evolved to see a certain spectrum, right? And supposedly this had evolutionary benefits. So we see the colors we do because that's where the food was or the fruit was or whatever the trees were. But camera vision can see any of the light spectrum, like the infrared, the ultraviolet. So when I've been thinking about this a lot, but when I look through glass, like I look out a window, it's completely visible what's on the other side. But there are spectrums of light, like your Wi-Fi, for example, that are just shooting through your walls. And there's no reason why a robot can't look at a wall and just see through it. Like if that's the vision data set it was trained on, and it has sufficiently learned vision through Wi-Fi, I mean, there's not walls for a robot. Like you can just look at a house and probably be like, there's everything and everybody.
Yeah.
Without even going onto your property.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely interesting to think about. I feel like that could potentially open up even more privacy concerns, but also more safety potential, right? Like maybe these robots could spot issues that are happening in a house as well. But yeah, I mean, I haven't really thought too much about that until you just brought it up, and now I'm probably not going to sleep. But no.
well, a great book that kind of illustrates that is, and I think both me and Dylan read it. It's Demon, or Damon, however you want to pronounce it. Daniel Suarez. Matt, have you read that book or listened to the audiobook? It's pretty good.
Freedom TM, yeah.
And the continuation is Freedom TM. But yeah, and there they kind of have this idea where people that are kind of, they're managed by superintelligence. They have glasses, just like we talked about, and they're sold in any building. They're able to see a 3D layout of the entire building, where the Wi-Fi routers are, where any connection, any wiring that exists somewhere in the digital space is just laid out. So they're basically seeing everything, everybody's phones within the whole building. And I was kind of trying to envision that in my mind. Can you imagine seeing that? It is like 3D, like there's no walls. You're just able to see everything everywhere.
Yeah. It's almost like being in a video game where you've got the like map up in the corner of the video game, but it's like real life,
like the wall cheat or whatever, wall hack.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. That's the other thing about ASI or even AGI with just different modalities. Like, we have sight, sound, touch, but there's tons of modalities out there. There's like true north, there's other spectrums, there's MRI patterns. Like it's going to be like Wes, one of the things you told me about the protein fold, like what would it be like to instinctively know how a protein would fold? The same way I instinctively know how when you throw a baseball, it's going to land in a certain spot, you know? Like, it's just beyond comprehension for me.
What if AI discovers something that we consider a little bit woo-woo, right? Like it's like, oh, you guys are radiating thoughts that change the matter. You're like, wait, what? He's like, oh, you
I
guys
can see your chi.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, yeah, I mean, mind reading might not be off the table. I mean, we've seen stuff through the electricity or the waves or whatever that go in our head. That's a language of its own that can be maybe taught. So
yeah, I mean, Neuralink especially, maybe, yeah. But Matt, one thing that I wanted to ask that's a little bit maybe off topic, not quite AI, but you've been around for so long, even before you started in AI, you were doing more like the affiliate marketing and stuff like that. So you've had such lasting power doing this stuff, posting content consistently, interviews, written content, videos. Um, every person that we've talked to in the AI space, most of them have trouble at some point encountered burnout or some mental health issues or whatever at whatever level they're at. Dave Shapiro, Julia McCoy.
Yeah.
Curious if you've experienced any of it, if you can share any strategies. You've been around for so long that you must have maybe figured out some things that we're all still struggling with. And I'm hoping also everybody contributes. Like I know Dave learned a lot, so he shared a little bit with us. I'm hoping to get everybody to kind of contribute a little bit, so maybe we can all share in that.
Yeah, so I've been making content full time since 2009. I quit my day job in 2009, so I've been doing it for 16 years now. But it's been an evolution, right? It's only been the last 5 years I've talked about AI. Before that, it was a lot of marketing and things like that. And I've felt close to burnout a few times. I don't feel like I've ever hit burnout at the levels that maybe like Dave Shapiro and like maybe Julia have hit. I don't know their scenarios super well. I definitely know more about David's than I do about Julia's.
They were in the emergency room, so that's kind of like, to me, that's hitting the wall.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever gotten there, but I think I've gotten to I've gotten to points where I'm definitely starting to feel a little bit bored by the topics, right? Like in AI, I definitely had a phase where it felt like every single week it was just kind of like, oh, there's new news, but it feels like a little tiny marginal improvement from what we had the prior week, right? And so I've definitely had those phases where I've sort of lost interest and then regained interest and then lost interest and regained interest. And I think for me, the biggest solution has always been just like talking to other like-minded people, right? And I know it sounds kind of cliche, but just like having conversations with other people and realizing that like they have a lot of the same struggles. They've gone through a lot of the same like ups and downs. I love learning about other people's workflows and automations and processes. And the more I can automate and do little things in my own business that I can sort of take off my own plate, that always sort of eases some things a little bit. But for me, like whenever I'm feeling that like, all right, I'm on the verge of burnout, or I'm not having fun anymore, or I don't know what to do next with my life, I usually just start talking to a lot of people, right? Like I will have calls with, like I talk to Matthew Berman quite frequently. I talk to Bilawal Sidhu, who's also another content creator in the AI space. And, there's a handful of people that are in the content creation space that I feel like I can jump on a call and be like, hey, I'm struggling right now. What are your thoughts on this? And usually just having conversations with people is what sort of straightens me out a little bit. But I've never really gotten to that point where I feel like really, really burnt out. And I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. I just need to shut down for a month. I've never gotten to that point. I've always had too much excitement around the enjoyment of creating content and the enjoyment of being on the forefront of a technology. Like, I feel like what we do, we get to see the future. And so much of the world isn't seeing the future. Like they're not seeing what we're seeing. And to me, that thought always reinvigorates me and always excites me of like, look, we're in this role where we know what's coming way before everybody else knows what's coming. And that to me just keeps things exciting and fresh, I guess.
Yeah, I guess seeing the bigger picture, the bigger goal, kind of like shooting for delivering value, or at least having some role to play in this big event that's happening. I mean, definitely. I guess when you sort of make yourself smaller and you kind of look to see the bigger picture. That also helps.
Yeah.
Curious if, and this is a question for both of you, we do have some influence in this space, whatever small degree we can maybe shift opinion one way or another. Is there anything, because and this is a pretty big deal, I feel like, for the world, obviously, especially as this thing gets better. Is there anything that we in this space should be doing to maybe help? I don't know. We don't have all the answers figured out, but is there anything that's like best practices? So make sure that, yeah.
The world needs a movement somehow. Like, it doesn't feel like, I don't know. I don't want to downplay it. It doesn't feel like we're big enough, but maybe, you guys are obviously way bigger than me, but like, someone's got to make
ground up. A lot of it
someone's got to make a movement, like something has to be worldwide, something has to be nationwide, something has to be statewide. Like, people have to get into buildings, they have to write letters. Like,
what to do? What?
I don't know. I don't know.
What do you mean by a movement? Like what do you see? Like, what's the outcome of this movement? Like what?
Well, it's the answer to what happens when automation changes the world. Like, there has to be, like, I would hate to have everybody think there's nothing to worry about, like, change is gradual, I don't need to do anything, and then just get displaced from their job and not have thought about what the replacement is for a world without jobs. Like, maybe it's UBI, maybe it's not, maybe it's government that leans on AI, and I don't know, maybe there's some kind of dividend stock thing that all this taxed money from the government goes into, and then we live on that as some sort of freedom dividend. Like, there's solutions out there that I occasionally hear like whispers of, but there's, I've never turned on CNN and Fox News and seen anyone talking about it. I've never seen Joe Rogan like focusing on this huge topic to make a big movement to his base that then goes and like pushes someone else to talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know where it comes from, but without it, it's just going to be a lot uglier.
Yeah. My philosophy has always just been like, when it comes to content creation, try to be as empathetic to all the perspectives, right? Like, when I'm looking at new tools or new news that comes out or any sort of new technology or research, I pretty much look at it from the lens of like, all right, how does this improve everybody's life? How can this really screw things up? Right. I kind of try to look at everything from both of those perspectives all of the time. And I think that's important for all of us to do, because I think there's a lot of people in the AI space that are just kind of like accelerate or die, right? You've got the effective accelerationists and the effective altruists, and those are sort of the two extremes, right? One just believes push everything forward as fast as you can. Don't worry about regulations. Don't worry about how it impacts jobs. Just push forward. And then you've got pretty much the opposite side of the spectrum of people saying, no, we need to stop this. We need to pause. We need to slow down. And I think it's important to try to look at everything from both of those sides, because, you don't want either one of the extremes really at the end of the day, right? You don't want AI to end us all and and take everybody's jobs, but at the same time, we don't want to slow down and let maybe adversarial countries to our country develop something that could potentially harm our country. And I don't know. To me, it's very nuanced, and I like to look at everything from a very, very nuanced take. And so, like, even when I make videos about like AI news and tools, I'm constantly saying like, here's what I think is good about this. Here's what I think is bad about this,
right,
and try to sort of take that middle ground. And I think too many people sort of look at it as from like this binary perspective, and it's everything, in my opinion, is way more nuanced than that.
Yeah. Okay, so here's what I'd say. I'd say that the way this is probably going to play out is that there's a couple faces that represent the tech industry that have incredible reach. So Elon Musk owns a social network. When he says something about the way the future plays out, for the most part, that galvanizes a huge chunk of the country to act a certain way. And it seems like Zuckerberg has picked up on this, and he's using his Instagram, Facebook tool to kind of become kind of like the friend that's kind of ending up in everyone's feed, right? Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the algorithm's sort of biased towards him, because he can have a voice over the platform he owns. Yeah. And when they say things about how the future of AI plays out, I feel like we should be reviewing that and honestly critiquing it with our audience. We should say, this might have a tinge of bias because of the companies they own, and the company has certain goals, and as a citizen, we might want to look at it in a different way. And if it honestly does align with what you think is best for your audience, then you can say that too. But it's just to be a reflector, I guess, to these comments and make sure that they're going through the litmus test. They're being kind of proven to be accurate, not just hearsay.
Yes, I'm talking to the SVIC guys, they're ex-Googlers. Like one of the things that they've sort of like cautioned me to do is like, hey, if I'm not gonna say any names, but if this person's saying that China's bad, don't just take his speaking points, because look, he's invested in this defense startup. So make sure you mention that, right? Because that might be a motivation for why he's saying China's bad. So little things like that we have to be, and that's what you're talking about, Dylan, right? Like,
exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, because there's a hint of truth in what Mark Zuckerberg or Sam Altman say about the future, but there's also a hint that it also seems to help their business alliance, right? And so I just want to point that out too. And some people who don't have the same alignment for financial incentives have different thoughts. So make sure to weigh those two equally.
100%. Yeah. I think, guys like Sam Altman and Mark Zuckerberg are very sort of incentivized for the world to get on board with AI and to sort of allow them to develop what they want to develop. But, I also often feel that, and I feel this way about both Sam Altman and Mark Zuckerberg, that the motives that they put out into the world and say this is why they're building it are not always necessarily the motives that they have internally for why they're building it. Like, for instance, Mark Zuckerberg, right? He owns Facebook and Instagram. I think is similar to the way we were talking about how Uber wants to cut out the middleman of the actual drivers. I feel that Meta at some point wants to cut out the middleman of content creators. I think if Meta can crack the code where like AI generated video and AI generated social posts get just as much reach and people want to watch them just as much as human generated content, they will go in that direction and put more and more and more AI generated content in your feed so that they can slowly cut out the middleman of creators that they often have to pay to put that content on their platform. And so I really do think that like you do have to, like Dylan was saying, you really, really have to like sort of weigh their motives there, because I think every company has at least two motives: the motives that they publicly put out into the world of like why they're trying to do this, and the motives they have internally that's going to, touch their bottom line a little bit.
Right.
Yeah, that's shocking too, because if you think about how much money, let's take YouTube, for example, they pay out through their creator program to creators. And there's some accountant at Google that says, if that money just went into more servers to create content, it's a net equal to us, and now we don't have to worry about liability and things. So, so there's always going to be that incentive to cut us out and take more of the profits.
Yeah. And I do think, for a while there will be pushback among creators and people who actually watch the content. They're going to want human created content. But I also think it's going to be a generational thing. I think future generations are going to come up being a little bit more native to seeing AI generated content all the time, and they're just going to care less and less. I think the younger generations aren't going to. So I think it might be like, quite a while before we see that turnover. But I do think that it gets to a point where like kids that are like my kids' age 10 years from now, they're not going to care if it was created by AI or not. If it delivers that dopamine hit, it delivers that thing that keeps them on the platform and scrolling to the next thing. They're not going to care if I
dude, the next Kim Kardashian, the next Love Island, like why not? They're just fake people debating their love lives, and people are just captured by it.
I mean, for me, that already has happened with art, quote unquote art, pictures, images. Midjourney is often to me much more visually stunning than some of the human-made images, I guess. Same thing with Suno. I love some of the songs it produces. I love listening to it. I get like that dopamine hit, that rush. I feel like for video, I still want to see a human being. Yeah. But at the same time, in our space, in the AI space, there was one channel that is 100% AI generated that slowly over time just like went up and up and up, and now it's doing pretty incredible traffic.
Well, and Julia, we just talked to her. I mean, she was a human person. Then. Yeah, she was. Yeah. But that channel for Matt Wolfe, do you know that for like the last 4, 5, 6 months, everything you've seen on Julia's site it's HeyGen?
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, most people don't know. It's HeyGen and 11 Labs. And then she pops in a little bit at the end. She's still super involved in curating what it says. There's a human in the loop deeply still. But,
I mean,
there's
a lot of short creators doing that already, right? You've got Varun Maya. I don't know if you guys follow him, but he's a short form creator on Instagram and TikTok, and his videos get hundreds of thousands of views, and it's all like a Heijen avatar of him explaining some sort of new thing that came out in AI. Rowan Chung from The Rundown, he saw what Varun was doing and modeled it and pretty much recreated the same success. And now every time Rowan's Instagram puts out a short, it gets, hundreds of thousands of views, and it's all just a Heijen avatar of Rowan explaining some new piece of news. And
I did not know
you
that.
watch the videos and you can't even really tell, because the way they edit it together, like whenever it looks a little uncanny where you can tell it's an AI video, they always hide that stuff with B-roll. So like they do a really good job of editing it so you can't even tell it's Heijen anymore.
Wow.
Is there an idea floating over my head? Well, I want to do more shorts, and I don't know how. That's a pretty good idea. Does he label it as AI content? I wonder. I mean, probably.
I don't know if he's labeling it as AI generated or not. I haven't paid that close of attention. I mean, I know it's AI because he told me.
Right.
But I don't know. Like, I think people that are paying attention to AI can probably still tell. Like, there's some signs that something was Heijen and not like an actual human. And so like I look for that kind of thing more and more often than probably most people look for it. But
Yeah.
I'd say
like on Julia's site, there's a lot of blinking comments. They're like, "Are you blinking weird and stuff?"
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah, I'm not real. Just reminder, you know."
Yeah. So I do definitely think that people that are watching closely to AI can still spot that kind of stuff pretty well. But still, like probably 80+% of the population isn't looking out for the same things that our eyes are looking out for.
No, and especially in story form, like the Stormtrooper vlogs, I really like. And I'm just like, okay, it's like a bunch of Stormtroopers behind the scenes, like doing their daily thing. And I'm like, I don't even care that it's AI. I just find it good content.
Yeah, I think the people behind that, they obviously have a sense of humor. They have a sense of timing. They understand what's going to be funny and what's not, right? Like, they're not going to VO and saying, hey, give me a funny Stormtrooper vlog. Like, they're actually most likely sort of figuring out what's going to be a funny moment and what images need to be there. There's still some human thought behind it. But I do think it will get to a point where, like, Instagram and Facebook and places like that, they're going to figure out like, okay, this is what makes this video funny and what makes it viral. We could just generate those without needing a human to type the prompt for us,
Well, and we heard through the grapevine that Mr. Beast is building out something with AI video in the background. So, and I feel like with his reach, with his money and everything else, I mean, if he manages to blow it up and make it popular, then that's going to be a whole wave coming after that. So
yeah, that'll be interesting.
Validation of the industry.
Well, you saw Mr. Beast put out like a thumbnail designer thing that used AI to like basically take other people's thumbnails and then swap their face with your face. And that didn't go over too well for him. So I don't know. Like, I feel like he might be a little cautious with how he launches whatever is next, especially if it's AI based.
Yeah, that's slowly. All right. Anything else? You feel like we're kind of getting
covered
into this?
So much. Matt, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think is interesting, or do we pretty much?
I mean, we cover a lot of ground. I mean, I love the way Dylan's brain works. I think I said this last time we did an interview. Is he asks questions and I'm like, I don't think anybody's ever asked me this stuff specifically.
Oh yeah,
before.
we would have. If we had another half hour, we would have gone simulation theory. But we'll save you from that. We'll find out how fake this world is.
But I mean, I love conversations like this because it definitely gets me thinking deeper on these topics, right? Because most of what I spend my time doing is the very surface level stuff of like, all right, here's the news that just came out. Here's a new tool. I'm going to get in and spend some time playing with it. And I spend time in those worlds. And I do sort of sit around and think about the deeper, bigger implications of it all and where it's all heading. But I try not to go there too often because it can often lead to dark places that scare me. So I love having conversations like this because it definitely gets me talking about things that I definitely don't normally talk about. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think we covered a lot of ground. I can't imagine where else we could take it. But I also feel like the three of us could probably talk for 2 more hours and still continue to nerd out about stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
This was absolutely incredible. So fascinating to hear your thoughts on it. And I love this kind of format where we can just slowly, there's no pressure. We can just kind of, it's playground of the mind, so to speak. So I absolutely love it. So thank you so much for being here. Dylan, anything else?
No, yeah, we'll just make sure everybody, they're probably already subscribed, but you can go to Matt Wolfe and Future Tools. And is there anything else you wanted to just plug or point people towards?
No, that's pretty much it. Yeah. So I've got my YouTube channel.
Okay.
Just search out Matt Wolfe, and then Future Tools is where I share all the cool tools I come across.
Yeah, I know your newsletters. Like I get that all the time. There's a lot of great stuff in there too, so they can sign up for that. And yeah, I'm sure they'll see you around. So, all right, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. This was super fun.
Terrific.
Hopefully we do
Thank
another
you
one.
so much.
Absolutely.